Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the Stamping with Sara webisode. Today we've got Christmas in August with a very special stamp set from hot off the press, the Snow Happy Flakes. Now, those of you with a Stamping with Sara membership already know about this, but let's take a closer look at the set together. I'm going to move aside the other products that we're going to be playing with today, and we can take a closer look here. So as you can see, there are 12 stamps included on this set, and it's a really nice mix of sentiments as well as snowflakes in a variety of sizes and styles. And you can use them individually. You can also use them together to create some really fun backgrounds. Now there's also a line on here, and this can be used to turn the snowflakes into ornaments. So something like this on the inside of this card. So I've used that line here. You'll notice also that little scripty bow. Well, there are a couple of those bows here on the set. There's the large and then medium and small. So you've got some really fun options here for designing with this set. And of course, on the back, we've got a project idea, one that Debbie has created for you there too, for a little bit of inspiration. So this is our stamp set for the day today. Now, today I'm also going to be using the Frosted Flowers 12 by 12 collection. And this pack has 12 coordinating sheets. You've also got 56 cutouts and 2 each of all of the paper designs. So you can see the samples here on the front of the package, but let me just flip through and you'll see some of these absolutely stunning patterned papers. I really like the color variations on here. You've got some really pretty blues, burgundy reds. Here's some of the cutouts. Those work perfectly for card focals. And then you've also got some messages on here too. And then the back is a really nice basic design. So those are our patterned papers here. Now I'm also going to be accenting my cards with the Straight Line Dazzles in Gold, which has, as you can imagine, straight lines. And you've got a variety of sizes here. You've got the thick and you've got the thin, and you will have more on your sheet. As you can see, I've used quite a few of these. They're really versatile and easy to use as accents. And then finally today, I'm also using Hunky Dory's Gold Glimmer Mist. And this is such a versatile product for creating shimmery backgrounds. There's a lot you can do with this. Now, if you are not already a Stamping with Sara member, please do stay tuned to the end of this webisode and you will find out more about how you can get the stamp set I'm using early and at a discount. Alrighty, we have a lot of creative possibilities to explore today, and I am so glad you're here. So won't you please come stamp with us? I wanted to start today with a sampler that shows a couple of the different ways you can use the Glimmer Mist. Now this is by no means all the techniques you can do, just the 4 that I thought we could concentrate on today. Now all 4 of these swatches have been made on the Hunky Dory Lightweight Essential Card Block, which is a perfect surface for stamping, spritzing, and all kinds of different techniques. So the 4 I have here, I've got some spritzing straight from the bottle. I've got a very heavy spritzing here. I've done some splattering on this piece. And yes, there's a difference between spritzing and splattering. We'll take a look. And then here I've done some painting onto that cardstock. So let's have a look. Now the first thing you'll want to do is cover your work surface. And I'm working onto my craft mat here. The other thing you'll want to do is really shake the bottle really well till you hear that ball rattling in there, and that will make sure that all of the beautiful glimmer inside this bottle has been mixed in with the liquid so that you get a nice shimmery shine. This is a water-based mixed media ink, and so you've got lots of different possibilities here. Okay, so I'm going to move aside my sampler and just bring in a swatch of that white cardstock. And from here, I'm going to simply spritz. So you'll just make sure when you're spritzing, take note of where the nozzle is aiming. Now you don't want to go too close to your paper. I generally will be standing when I'm working, and so I'm holding this a good maybe 12 inches away from my cardstock. So let me give this just a few quick mists. And there you can see you've got some really beautiful, easy, light misting coverage on here. Now that was just 2 pumps holding the bottle, I'd say about 12 inches away, and kind of at an angle here. Now all I need to do is just let this dry, and I've got a really pretty, beautiful background. So this is one option. Now let's take a look at what happens if I keep going and I missed a lot of this. So I'm just going to leave this as it is and continue. I'm moving my bottle as I do this, moving my hand, and here you can start to see really where I'm getting some nice all over coverage here. So I do want to make sure to let this dry before I'm handling it, and I'll just set this aside, and when it is all dry, I'll have this gorgeous shimmery piece here. So I'm going to move this to one side, and of course you may want to mop up your craft mat in between, or you could use some cardstock to mop that up with too. You could get some more fun backgrounds that way. So remember, I told you there's a lot that you can do with this. But let's move on to our splattering technique. So remember, I told you there's a difference between spritzing and splattering. And when I'm splattering, I'm going to unscrew the top from my bottle. And you see I've got all kinds of nice glimmery color on here. And I'm just going to tap this. And again, I'm moving my hands, I'm moving the applicator around, and that's going to give me some nice coverage on here. The other thing you can do is turn your cardstock around, and then you'll be splattering from a different angle too. So this is going to give you larger droplets of that color. And again, just a beautiful, easy background. And I'll just need to let this dry. It won't take very long. I can also give it a quick zip zap with my heat tool, and that will speed up drying time. I can also blot this with a cloth or a tissue, and that will give me some wider, flatter dots. All right, so another technique that I want to show you, okay, I'm going to move this to one side here too, is that painting process. Now for this, what I'll do is decant a bit of the color onto my craft mat. So remember, your craft mat is not only for protecting your work surface, it is also a palette. And I'm going to grab a water brush here and simply pick up some color here and then paint onto my cardstock or paper. And I'm just scribbling this on here. Of course, you can do more intricate work if you want. You can paint in images. And we'll look at that later in today's webisode. But you can see you can just add some really nice soft shimmery color on there. Now you can also, because this is a water-based ink, you can also dilute the color with some water on your craft mat before you do your painting. So you can get a softer, lighter color on there as well. All right, so here are our 3 samples. I'll hold this carefully. And you can see all of the different ways, or a start of some of the different ways you can create backgrounds with this. Now you may also be asking, can I stamp with it? Well, the answer is yes, and this will depend largely on the stamps that you're working with. Now the stamps that I'm using today are sentiments, and they're also some quite detailed snowflake stamps. So stamping with the Glimmer Mist didn't work out so well with my snowflakes. I didn't get as crisp and detailed of a look as I wanted. So I tried this with silhouette stamps. So we're going to go back to our May stamp collection. This was from the May Stamping with Sara webisode. So the Stamp a Garden set. And this one had a lot of silhouette designs, namely this beautiful botanical here. And so what I did is used a sponge, and I just cut apart a piece of kitchen sponge, dipped it into my Glimmer Mist that I put onto my craft mat, added that to my stamp, and then stamped onto my white cardstock. And it is not going to give you a perfect crisp look, but it will give you a beautiful kind of watercolor abstract effect. So yes, you can stamp with this as well. My recommendation is to go with a silhouette style design. So here are just a few of the options that we will be playing with today with our Glimmer Mist. to create some really interesting effects for our cards. Here's our first card project, and I want to angle this so that you can see that golden shimmer on the background paper. I just love this effect, and it's such an easy way to add a little bit of sparkle to a project. So this has been done with a simple spritzing of Glimmer mist directly onto the patterned background paper. Let that dry, and then I've stamped on top with those snowflakes. So let's have a look at our stamping. Since we've already seen how easy it is to add some beautiful soft color to your background paper, I've got my piece of cardstock all ready to go. And I thought we could do this demo onto some plain white cardstock here so that we can see how this shows up. Now I've also got some of my snowflakes over here on the other side of my Misty plate. So when I close this up, they will stamp together. Okay, so I'm going to be working with a black ink pad for this one, and this is the VersaFine in Onyx Black. That's going to give me a nice crisp look. So I can go ahead and ink up all of my snowflakes here. And then what I'll do is simply close up my Misty and press, and then I'll have some really pretty background images on here. Now normally when I'm stamping, I generally tend to stand, kind of like when I do any sort of misting or coloring techniques, I'm standing directly over my table, not coming at it at an angle, but this is the beauty of the Misty, because if it doesn't stamp perfectly, I can come back and do it again, but it looks like it worked out just fine. But if, for example, I hadn't gotten perfect impressions, maybe a little bit of a bald patch on some of these, then what I can do is simply come back, leave everything in place, and come back and re-ink, and then close this up again. We had a viewer write in about the Misty, and Paulette and I were talking about this back in the olden days when we were just using acrylic blocks or wood-mounted stamps. Sometimes you wasted a lot of paper and cardstock with imperfect impressions, so thank goodness for the Misty. So here we go, I've got my background all stamped and ready to go, and it's just a beautiful detailed image on here that on Onyx Black, the VersaFine really does give a nice crisp image. So this is as easy as it can possibly be. I absolutely love this. I'm going to move this out of the way carefully, and then we can take a closer look at our card project and talk about the spritzing. So I mentioned that I spritzed onto my background paper. This is the background paper that I used. So you can definitely see a difference between those designs and how that golden glimmer mist is really creating a nice soft golden glow onto this patterned background paper. So again, just a light misting all over, and then I've trimmed down that background paper slightly smaller than my card front. I inked around the outside edges using black ink and then added it to the card front. And then I've got two of those straight line dazzles going along the edge. Now I've stamped my sentiment onto some white cardstock from the Hunky Dory Essential Card Block and die cut it into a label shape. And the die set that I'm working with is the 8 labels for your greetings. So you can fit your greetings perfectly right inside here. And these just make really nice layered focal images. So I've got my white piece, and then I've got this gold cardstock here. Now this is the hammered gold paper. This is from hot off the press. It comes in a pack with several 8.5 by 11 sheets. I use it a lot, so I've got just this little scrap left to show you. But it has a really beautiful shine, and it's quite subtle. It does have this texture on it, that hammered effect, and it die cuts beautifully, as you can see here. Both of these layers are popped up on foam tape. And then I've got a bow tied in some jute twine down here at the bottom. Now for my card inside, things are really simple. I've got another piece of patterned paper, not spritzed, and then I've got 2 more layered die cut pieces with another one of those stamped sentiments. Let's take another look at our sample and again at that heavily spritzed piece of cardstock here. And you can see how much coverage we've gotten there. And then also if I'm angling this, you can see that beautiful shimmer and shine. Well, that heavy application is what I've done on my patterned paper here on my card front. So I want to show you the original paper, and you can see the difference here. So this is exactly the same design before spritzing and after spritzing. So I've spritzed this quite heavily with my Glimmer Mist and really let it dry before adding it to the front of my card. And I've just trimmed it down top and bottom so that I've got this white border here showing along the edges of my card, and then I've accented this with some dazzles and my stamped focal. So for my focal, I've done some overstamping, and the snowflakes are stamped onto white cardstock using the Warm Honey dye-based ink. And so this is going to tie in really nicely with my gold effects on here, but it also will give me still those crisp, beautiful detailed images for my snowflakes. Then I've overstamped with the sentiment using the black ink pad. And I've done some layering here with my circles and scallop dies. Now this is a set that I use a lot. As you can tell, the 12 circle and scalloped set gives you a variety of smooth and scalloped nesting circles. And that's what I've combined on here. So I've got the snowflake stamped white cardstock, and then I've layered this onto some gold cardstock, which is cut in the scallop. And this is different than the hammered gold that we saw for our first project. This is a smooth but still beautifully metallic, shiny cardstock, also from hot off the press. Also one that I use a lot. In fact, this is another one that I need to restock on. This is all I've got left. As you can see, it die cuts beautifully, and it does coordinate really nicely with our background and with those dazzles. Underneath here, I have a smooth circle, which is white cardstock that I've just spritzed with the Glimmer Mist. So 3 layers here. These top 2 are secured down with some foam tape. And then I've got 2 of the thin dazzles crisscrossing here along the bottom, trimmed off even with the edges, and then I've added a jute twine bow in the center. I've also got some dazzles down at the bottom to create a nice border and a nice balance with the border up here at the top. I have a thick and a thin, and that just adds some really nice shine and balance to the overall design. And then for the inside, I have some more Warm Honey stamped snowflakes and this message, and then I've got 2 more strips of dazzle lines going across the bottom. Coming back to our splattering effect, well, this background paper has some splattered Glimmer Mist, and again I've overstamped this with the snowflakes. So I'll bring back in my sampler swatch sheet here, and again, as a reminder, here are those big beautiful blots of color, and it adds such a nice effect to your background papers. So let's take a look again at this technique, and I'm going to bring in a piece of this darker cardstock, and then we can take another look at our splattering. And then I want to show you another option here too that you can do with the same effect. All right, so again, I'm just going to hold this over my cardstock, pick up that loaded tube. I'm sure there's a technical word for what this is, and then simply move this around to add that gorgeous touch of color on there. And I think you can see that shine. Now I've already got some background patterning on here. It comes printed on the background paper, but let's have a look at what this can look like if you're using a black or a dark cardstock. This is a really fun way to create a really nice, subtle, beautiful background for your Christmas cards and other cards too. So I'm moving this around here, and I think you can see just how beautifully that works onto a black, or this could also work with a navy cardstock too. So I wanted to show you those 2 options, both with patterned paper and with a solid. So you've got lots of different ways that you can use that splattering effect, and quick and easy to do. So again, just let that dry and you'll be ready to add it to your project. Okay, I'll bring this back in and we can take another look here. So I've done my overstamping with those snowflakes all over that background design there too. And then I've covered my card front with the coordinating pattern paper. So I'll show you the paper that I'm using here. This is for my center portion, and you can see some of those florals on there. And then the other side is what I've used to cover the front of my card with. So remember, you get multiples of those sheets of pattern paper, so you can mix and match them together on the same card. Now I've also matted this piece onto some of that solid gold metallic cardstock that I showed you from our previous card. I've got some matting here as well underneath my cutout, and the cutout is from the paper pack. I've stamped my sentiment right in that centerpiece, and then I've added 2 of those thin line dazzles top and bottom here just to accent the printed design. I have one of the wider line dazzles on here going along the edge, and this is just such a great way to add a polishing touch to your card projects, just a simple border going along the edge there. Now I'm also doing some inking around the outside edges of my card, and for this I'm using the Delicata gold ink pad, and this is a really nice way to coordinate with some of those gold colors in the project, and also just to give some nice shading around the outside edge. This piece is popped up with foam tape as well. Then for the inside, I've got some more beautiful pattern paper, also stamped with some snowflakes on there, and another sentiment on a label die cut. Our final project features some painting with the Glimmer mist as I'm coloring in the poinsettias here with a touch of gold. So again, working onto my craft mat, let me just bring in one of these cutouts here. And I will also bring in, of course, the Glimmer mist. I've got my water brush, a little bit of water here in my jar, and I'll just decant a bit of this onto my craft mat. And again, you can dilute the color if you want to with a little bit of water. I've got some water on my water brush, so that'll probably already dilute some of this too. So I'll just pick up some of this and then add in my color. So maybe in this case, I'm going to touch in the leaves. And all I'm doing is following the lines of the printed design on here. I could color in the leaves, I could color in the flowers, I could color in my background. And I really love how this just adds such a pretty touch of shine on there. And again, all you need to do is just let this dry quickly and you are ready to go. So the other thing you can do too, I've got quite a fine tip here on my water brush. And again, as we saw with the demo at the beginning, you can create some really nice, easy backgrounds here with a small brush. If you have a wider brush, of course, you can get some more coverage on there. And I can show you also, again, with our swatch sheet here, that I used a wider brush for this effect, and you can really get some nice background coverage in there. So then again, all you need to do when you're done with your color is just mop this up off of your craft mat and you're ready to go. So let's take another closer look here. Here I've got the 2 poinsettias painted in, and then this piece here is from the paper pack. It's one of the cutouts, and it trims down really nicely to be matted, yes, with another gold. And this time I'm using the brushed diamond paper, also from hot off the press. And this has a really nice tactile effect. This also has like kind of a glitter effect to it too, but there is no glitter shedding off of here. So I've trimmed this to be my mat underneath this piece, and I've also die cut it using one of the rectangle cutting dies on here. And then I've got my line dazzles here, top and bottom, just to accent the corners. My sentiment has been stamped, not with black this time, but with the Stormy Night. And I've stamped this on top of a piece of that white cardstock to which I had done some easy splattering on there. So it's quite subtle on there as well. So I've got some Glimmer mist here and then also in those painted areas as well. I have done some gold inking around the outside edges of my card with that Delicata ink pad too. And of course I've got my snowflakes stamped, this time in the Stormy Night in the background. Now when I open this up, you've got another look at that snowflake we saw earlier. in our webisodes. So this really beautiful kind of ornament style design using the straight line and then also this bow up here. And I have also painted in some of the various details of this snowflake. Do make sure when you're doing this, because the dye-based ink pad will react to a water-based medium, you want to have a light touch with that and just dab in some color here and there so that you don't blur any of those lines. Then I have my Snow Happy stamp sentiment, and I've got some more of those dazzles there on either corner. And that is our final project of the day today. A big thank you to you for joining me today. I hope you had as much fun as I did with our gorgeous stamps, our Glimmer mist, and those really fun dazzles to go along too. Now the stamps and the paper pack are available in a money saver, and you can see that special offer on the right hand side of your screen. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this webisode, you can also get the latest stamps and papers with our monthly Stamping with Sara subscription. And here are a few of the details. You can take a look. You'll be the first to receive the stamp of the month, and you'll get that before the webisode airs. And you will save 10% on the retail price. Now you'll also get a free goodie each month plus a free gift with your membership. And the free gift is this wood grain stamp. You can see a really small image of it there. It makes a gorgeous background design, one of my favorites. Now, if you happen to be watching us on YouTube, we'd love for you to subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you did. And please do join us on paperwishes.com. This is the only place that you'll find this membership subscription. And you'll also see that we create 6 webisodes every week to inspire your creative spirit. Thank you again for joining me today. We're really glad you're here, and we're so happy you're a part of the Paper Wishes family. Do feel free to leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you think. I'll see you next month for another episode of Stamping with Sara.